Have you ever noticed how the mind has a strange habit of returning to one particular person, even when you've done everything you can to move on? It rarely happens during moments of chaos. Instead, it finds you in silence. While watching the rain through a window, during a quiet drive home, just before sleep, when the world grows still and your thoughts are no longer competing with endless distractions. Without warning, their face appears. A memory follows. Then a feeling. You don't invite it, and yet it arrives as though it has been waiting patiently beneath the surface all along. Most people assume this means they're still in love, unable to let go, or trapped in the past. But Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind doesn't repeat something without purpose. When a thought continues returning again and again, it may be asking for your attention rather than your resistance. The question is not, why can't I stop thinking about them? The better question is, why does my mind believe this memory is still important? That single question changes everything. Our minds don't store experiences the way a camera stores photographs. They store meaning. Out of thousands of conversations you've had throughout your life, only a handful remain vivid. Out of all the faces you've met, only a few continue to live in your memory. The difference isn't time, it's emotional significance. The stronger the emotion, the deeper the imprint. This is why you can forget what you ate last Tuesday, but remember a single sentence someone spoke to you years ago. The unconscious isn't interested in recording every moment. It preserves the experiences that shaped your inner world. Sometimes, the person who stays in your thoughts isn't there because they changed your life forever. They remain because your mind has not yet understood what they represented. Think of your unconscious as a library. Every meaningful experience becomes a book placed on its shelves. Most books are read, understood, and quietly returned. But some remain open on the table, their pages unfinished. Every time your thoughts drift back to a certain person, it's as if your mind is picking up that unfinished book once again, searching for something it still hasn't found. Many people make the mistake of trying to force the book shut. They distract themselves with work, new relationships, endless scrolling, or constant busyness. For a while, it seems to work. But eventually, the silence returns, and so does the memory. This isn't necessarily a sign that you're meant to be with that person, nor is it proof that they're thinking about you at the exact same moment. The human mind is far more complex than simple answers allow. What returns repeatedly is often not the person themselves, but the emotions connected to them. Hope, regret, gratitude, loss, possibility. Sometimes all of them at once. Jung believed that what remains unconscious continues to influence our lives until we become aware of it. In other words, what you refuse to understand has a way of returning, again and again, not to punish you, but to be acknowledged. Perhaps this is why certain people become impossible to forget. Not because they were perfect, not because they were your only chance at happiness, but because they awakened something within you that had been asleep for years. The real mystery, then, isn't why they continue appearing in your thoughts. The real mystery is what part of you awakens every time they do. And once you begin asking that question, you are no longer chasing a memory. You are beginning one of the most important journeys a person can take, the journey into the hidden landscape of their own mind. Imagine walking through an old house you've inherited. At first glance, everything seems familiar. The rooms are clean, the windows are open, and sunlight fills the hallways. But as you begin to explore, you discover a locked door at the end of a narrow corridor. Behind that door are forgotten photographs, unopened letters, old journals, and memories that no one has touched for years. Your mind works in much the same way. Most of your daily life is directed by your conscious mind, the part that makes decisions, solves problems, and plans for the future. But beneath it lies something far larger and far more mysterious: the unconscious. Carl Jung believed the unconscious isn't just a storage room for forgotten memories. It's a living psychological force that quietly shapes your emotions, your relationships, your dreams, and even the people you're drawn toward. This is why certain memories don't simply disappear because you've decided they should. Your conscious mind may say, "I've moved on." But the unconscious asks a different question. Have you understood what this experience was trying to teach you? Those are two very different things. Think about a song you haven't heard in years. The moment it begins to play, you're suddenly transported back to a specific place in your life. You remember the weather, the room you were standing in, even emotions you thought had long since faded. The song didn't create those feelings. It unlocked them. Certain people have the same effect. Their name, a familiar perfume, a city you once visited together. Even a random conversation can unlock an entire emotional landscape that has been quietly waiting beneath the surface. The unconscious doesn't measure time the way the conscious mind does. To it, an experience from 10 years ago can feel emotionally present if it has never been fully understood. This explains why people are often surprised by their own reactions. You may believe you've completely healed. Then one ordinary moment brings everything rushing back. It's easy to mistake this as failure, but it isn't. Healing isn't measured by how rarely you remember someone. It's measured by how peacefully you can remember them. There's an important difference. Many people spend years trying to erase memories. Jung believed this approach rarely works. Whatever you fight inside yourself often becomes stronger. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more forcefully it rises back to the surface. The unconscious behaves in much the same way. Ignored emotions don't disappear. They simply wait. Eventually they return, not because they want to hurt you, but because they want to be acknowledged. This is why recurring thoughts often carry hidden messages. Perhaps the relationship revealed your fear of abandonment. Perhaps it exposed how deeply you sought validation from others. Or perhaps, for the first time in your life, someone made you feel truly accepted, and your mind has been searching for that feeling ever since. Notice something important. The unconscious isn't always asking you to reconnect with another person. Sometimes it's asking you to reconnect with yourself. This is where many people become trapped. They believe the answer lies outside them. If only I could talk to them one more time. If only I knew how they really felt. If only things had ended differently. But even if every unanswered question suddenly received an answer, would that truly resolve what you're feeling? Not always. Because what hurts most is often deeper than the relationship itself. It's the part of you that was awakened by it. Jung believed every emotionally significant encounter leaves a psychological imprint. Some imprints become wisdom. Others become wounds. The difference depends on whether we're willing to understand them. Every person who enters your life leaves something behind. Some leave memories, some leave lessons, and a very small number leave questions that slowly reshape who you become. Perhaps the person you can't stop thinking about belongs to that final group. Not because they're meant to define the rest of your life, but because they opened a door inside your mind that you have not yet walked through. The unconscious never asks you to live in the past. It asks you to understand it. Because only what is understood can finally be released. And perhaps that's why this person continues to return. Not as a sign that your story with them is unfinished, but as an invitation to finish a story within yourself. Imagine standing in front of an old mirror. At first you believe you're simply looking at your reflection. But the longer you stare, the more you realize that the mirror isn't just showing your face. It is revealing parts of yourself you've never truly noticed before. Carl Jung believed that relationships often work the same way. The people who affect us most are not always the ones who are perfect. They are the ones who reflect something hidden inside us. Jung called this psychological process projection, and he believed it shapes nearly every meaningful relationship we experience. When you first meet someone who deeply fascinates you, you rarely see them exactly as they are. Instead, your unconscious quietly fills in the spaces you don't yet know. You don't just see the person standing before you. You see your hopes, your fears, your dreams, your longing to be understood. Without realizing it, you begin creating a story around them. Perhaps you believe they're the only person who has ever truly understood you. Perhaps they seem wiser than everyone else, kinder, stronger, more complete. But here's the question Jung invites us to ask. How much of that belongs to them, and how much belongs to you? This isn't meant to diminish your feelings. It's meant to deepen your understanding of them. Think about the qualities you admired most in this person. Was it their confidence, their kindness, their calmness, the way they made you feel safe? Now ask yourself something even more important. Why did those qualities affect you so deeply? Sometimes we admire in others what we've never allowed ourselves to become. The confident person reminds us of the courage we've hidden. The compassionate person reflects the kindness we've forgotten to show ourselves. The peaceful person awakens a part of us that longs for inner stillness. In other words, the people who leave the deepest impressions are often mirrors reflecting our own unrealized potential. This is why losing them can feel like losing a part of yourself. But perhaps what you lost wasn't your identity. Perhaps you only lost the mirror that helped you see it. Think of the sun shining through a window. The window doesn't create the light. It simply allows it to enter the room. The person who changed your life may have done something similar. They didn't create your ability to love. They revealed it. They didn't create your compassion. They awakened it. They didn't give you value. They reminded you that it already existed. This changes the way we understand heartbreak. Many people believe they're grieving another person. Often, they're grieving the version of themselves that existed when that person was present. The dreams they shared, the future they imagined, the hope they carried. When the relationship ends, it feels as though those parts disappear too. But they haven't. They're still within you, waiting to be rediscovered without depending on someone else to bring them to life. This is one of Jung's greatest lessons. Everything you seek outside yourself has roots within you. Love, peace, purpose, belonging. Relationships can awaken these qualities, but they cannot permanently own them. That is why placing another person at the center of your identity is so dangerous. Sooner or later, every human being changes. People leave. Circumstances shift. Life moves forward. If your sense of self depends entirely on someone else's presence, then every goodbye feels like losing yourself. But if you recognize that they merely revealed something already living inside you, the pain begins to transform. You stop asking, "How do I get them back?" and you begin asking, "What were they trying to awaken within me?" That question marks the beginning of emotional maturity. It shifts your focus from chasing another person to understanding your own soul. Perhaps they entered your life to teach you what genuine connection feels like. Perhaps they showed you the importance of vulnerability. Or perhaps they simply reminded you that your heart was capable of loving more deeply than you had ever imagined. Whatever the lesson may be, it doesn't disappear when they do. It becomes part of who you are. And maybe that's why some people remain in our thoughts long after they're gone. Not because they're asking us to follow them, but because they're pointing us back toward ourselves. In the end, the most important relationship you will ever build isn't with the person you can't forget. It's with the person you've been becoming all along. There is a common belief that closure comes from another person. We imagine that if they finally explained why they left, apologized for what happened, or admitted how they truly felt, the pain would disappear. But psychology tells a different story. Carl Jung believed that peace rarely begins with someone else's words. More often, it begins with our own understanding. Think about a novel you've been reading for weeks. You become invested in the characters. You imagine how their story will end. Then, just before the final chapter, someone tears out the last few pages. You know the story isn't over, but you have no ending. Your mind immediately begins creating possibilities. Maybe the characters reunited. Maybe they separated forever. Maybe one of them changed in ways you never expected. The uncertainty becomes almost unbearable. Human relationships often end the same way. Rarely do they conclude with perfect clarity. Sometimes conversations remain unfinished, questions remain unanswered, feelings remain unspoken. And because the human brain naturally seeks completion, it keeps returning to the same memories, hoping to discover an ending that was never given. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, our tendency to remember unfinished experiences more vividly than completed ones. Jung saw something even deeper. He believed that unfinished experiences continue to live within the unconscious until we discover what they were trying to teach us. In other words, your mind isn't only searching for answers, it's searching for meaning. This is why some people remain in your thoughts long after they have disappeared from your life. Not because time has failed to heal you, but because understanding has not yet replaced confusion. Many people spend years asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Yet a far more powerful question is, "What has this experience revealed about me?" Notice the difference. The first question keeps your attention on another person. The second brings it back to your own growth. That shift is where healing begins. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase everywhere you go. At first, you believe the weight comes from the suitcase itself. But when you finally open it, you discover it isn't filled with the other person's belongings. It's filled with your own. Your fears, your expectations, your regrets, your unanswered questions. The suitcase was always yours. The relationship simply gave you a reason to notice it. This is why no one else can completely free you from emotional pain. Another person's apology might bring relief. Their explanation may answer a few questions. But only you can decide what those experiences mean for the person you're becoming. Jung believed every emotional wound carries two possibilities. It can become a prison, or it can become a doorway. A prison keeps you trapped in the same story, repeating the same memories, asking the same questions, waiting for someone else to change the ending. A doorway invites you to walk forward with greater wisdom than before. The event itself cannot be changed, but its meaning can. Think about the strongest people you've ever admired. Most of them weren't shaped by perfect lives. They were shaped by difficult experiences that forced them to understand themselves more deeply. Pain, when reflected upon honestly, becomes wisdom. Pain, when avoided, often becomes repetition. This is why some people find themselves entering the same relationship over and over again, only with different faces. The names change, the circumstances change, but the emotional pattern remains. The unconscious is patient. If one lesson is ignored, life often presents another opportunity to learn it. Not as punishment, but as an invitation to grow. Perhaps that's why this person continues to appear in your thoughts. Not because your future depends on them, but because part of your inner world is asking to be understood before you continue your journey. And maybe the closure you've been searching for was never hidden inside another person's explanation. Maybe it has been quietly waiting within your own understanding all along. Because the greatest freedom isn't forgetting someone. It's remembering them without losing yourself. Imagine climbing a mountain before sunrise. The journey is difficult. Every step demands effort. There are moments when you wonder if turning back would be easier. But when you finally reach the summit, something unexpected happens. You don't only see the world differently, you see yourself differently. Carl Jung believed that this is the hidden purpose of life's deepest emotional experiences. They are not meant to keep us trapped in the past. They are meant to transform us into someone who understands themselves more completely than before. Perhaps this is why certain people enter our lives with such extraordinary intensity. Some stay for decades. Others stay for only a few months. Yet, the length of a relationship has very little to do with its psychological impact. A brief encounter can change the direction of your life. A lifetime together can pass without ever changing who you are. What matters is not how long someone remains. What matters is what awakens within you because of their presence. This is where many people misunderstand love. They believe the goal is to hold on forever. But Jung suggested something far more profound. Sometimes the purpose of a relationship is not possession. It is transformation. Some people arrive to show you your strengths. Others reveal your fears. Some awaken your courage. Others expose the wounds you've spent years hiding from yourself. None of these experiences are meaningless. Each one becomes another piece of the person you are slowly becoming. Think back to the question that began this journey. Why can't you stop thinking about that one person? Perhaps the answer has never been as simple as love or loss. Perhaps your mind has been returning to them because they represent an important chapter in your psychological development. Not the destination, the turning point. A bridge between the person you once were and the person you are capable of becoming. And bridges are not places where we build our homes, they are places we cross. Many people spend years standing in the middle of the bridge, afraid to walk forward because they believe moving on means forgetting. But moving on is not forgetting. Moving on is remembering without becoming imprisoned by the memory. It is being grateful for what the experience revealed, while accepting that life continues beyond it. This is one of Jung's greatest lessons. The goal of life is not to avoid emotional pain, nor is it to chase endless happiness. The goal is to become whole, to bring together the parts of yourself that have been divided by fear, regret, longing, and hope. This lifelong journey is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Every meaningful relationship becomes part of that journey, even the ones that end, especially the ones that end. Because endings often reveal truths that comfort never could. One day you may still remember this person. A song might remind you of them. A familiar place may bring back an old memory. Their name may appear unexpectedly, but something will be different. The memory will no longer feel like a chain pulling you backward. It will feel like a chapter in a book you've already finished reading. You'll smile, not because the story ended the way you wanted, but because you finally understand why it had to happen. That is the quiet gift of psychological growth. It doesn't erase the past. It changes your relationship with it. So if someone continues to appear in your thoughts, don't rush to label it as destiny. Don't assume it's a sign that your future depends on their return. Instead, become curious. Ask yourself, what part of me is this memory trying to reveal? What lesson have I not fully understood? Who am I becoming because of this experience? Those questions lead somewhere far more valuable than certainty about another person. They lead to self-knowledge. And according to Carl Jung, the person who truly knows themselves is no longer controlled by unconscious patterns. They no longer spend their life searching for missing pieces in other people, because they have begun discovering those pieces within themselves. Perhaps that's the real reason this person entered your life. Not to complete you, but to begin the process of discovering that you were never incomplete to begin with. And maybe, just maybe, the person you have been searching for through all these memories has been quietly waiting within you all along. Thank you for watching. If this journey into Jungian psychology helped you see your own experiences in a new light, remember this. The deepest answers rarely come from chasing the outside world. They emerge when you have the courage to explore the one within.